Pope Leo XIV's recent actions have sent ripples through the Vatican, signaling a potential shift in the Church's direction. His inaugural Mass on May 18, 2025, was not just a ceremonial event, but a declaration of his vision for the papacy. In front of over 200,000 attendees at St. Peter's Square, including world leaders and dignitaries, Pope Leo XIV emphasized unity and love as central themes of his pontificate. He described himself not as a reformer, but as a servant to the faith, aiming to uphold the Church's sacred traditions while addressing contemporary challenges. One of his first significant decisions was to confirm the Vatican's willingness to host peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. This move underscores his commitment to the Church's role in global diplomacy and peacemaking. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni announced this development on May 20, 2025, highlighting the Pope's proactive approach to international conflicts. However, not all reactions to Pope Leo XIV's actions have been positive. Survivors of clergy sexual abuse have raised concerns about his past handling of abuse cases during his leadership roles in Chicago, Peru, and while serving as head of the Vatican's Office for Bishops. The Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests, SNAP, criticized Pope Leo for not taking sufficient action against accused clergy, such as involving law enforcement or enforcing permanent removal from ministry. They are demanding a global zero-tolerance policy toward abusive priests and the formation of a truth commission. Additionally, Pope Leo XIV's progressive stance on issues such as immigration, gun control, and social justice has sparked controversy among certain factions within the Catholic community. MAGA-aligned Catholics have expressed concerns, accusing him of being anti-Trump and a Marxist. These critics view his positions as a continuation of Pope Francis's approach, which they oppose. Despite these controversies, Pope Leo XIV's papacy marks a significant moment in the Church's history. His emphasis on unity, love, and global peace initiatives reflects a commitment to addressing both spiritual and worldly concerns. As his pontificate unfolds, it will be interesting to observe how he navigates the challenges and expectations placed upon him. In conclusion, Pope Leo XIV's recent actions have indeed stunned the Vatican, signaling a potential shift in the Church's direction. His commitment to unity, love, and global peace initiatives reflects a desire to address contemporary challenges while upholding the Church's sacred traditions. The coming months will reveal how his papacy evolves and how the Church responds to the changes he introduces. Certainly. Here's the continued and expanded YouTube video script, based on the article you shared and enriched with additional, relevant content to reach your requested length and tone. This version is simplified, engaging, and structured in easy-to-understand paragraphs with no difficult words, hooks, or flashy transitions. It begins directly with the main point and maintains a steady and respectful tone throughout. Pope Leo XIV's rise to the papacy marks more than just a transition in leadership. It marks the beginning of what many are calling a quiet but clear turning point in the heart of the Church. His very first major appearance, held in the sacred walls of St. Peter's Basilica, was not just a formal religious ritual. It was a deeply meaningful event that reflected the Pope's vision for his time in the Vatican. From the moment he stepped onto the altar, everything about Pope Leo XIV's approach felt intentional. He didn't make grand gestures or use dramatic language. Instead, he focused on two simple but powerful words: unity and love. These were not thrown around lightly or used as slogans. They were repeated with purpose, delivered in a tone that suggested they would guide not just his homily, but his entire leadership. What surprised many was the tone of the homily. People expected something neutral, maybe even cautious. But Pope Leo XIV offered something different. His words were grounded, careful, but full of meaning. He didn't act like a politician trying to win applause. He spoke like a pastor, someone concerned first and foremost with the spiritual well-being of the people. And yet, despite the soft tone, the message was clear. This was not going to be a papacy of chaos or sudden revolution. It was going to be a time of reflection, of drawing strength from what has already been passed down. In fact, He was very clear about that. He described himself not as a reformer, not as someone coming to make changes, but as a guardian of faith, a keeper of tradition, a servant of the Church's deep and long spiritual roots. That kind of language resonated with many who had long felt the Church needed to stop trying to chase modern trends and instead return to its foundations. Still, while many praised the Pope's message, there were others who received it with uncertainty. In corners of the Church where people hoped for bold changes, there was silence. Not anger, not protest, but a kind of quiet hesitation. Some had expected something more direct, maybe even radical. Instead, they heard a man committed to protecting what is sacred, not reshaping it. For some, that was a comfort. For others, and cause for concern. But the deeper meaning of Pope Leo XIV's words may not be understood at first glance. Beneath the public statements, beneath the headlines, there seems to be something more, something deeper. Those who have been watching closely, those who truly know how to listen, have noticed that Pope Leo XIV is not just maintaining tradition for tradition's sake. He appears to be preparing the Church for something, and although it's too early to say exactly what that is, the early signs are already there. His very first major decision is already being called historic by some Church observers. Within days of his inaugural Mass, he reached out quietly but firmly to offer the Vatican as a place for peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. This was not announced with fanfare or headlines. It was confirmed during a simple press appearance with Italy's Prime Minister. And yet, the gesture was powerful. By offering the Vatican as a neutral ground for peace negotiations, Pope Leo XIV reminded the world that the Church is not just a spiritual home. It is also a place of diplomacy, compassion, and healing. In the middle of one of the most painful conflicts of recent years, the Pope extended a hand not just to the faithful, but to the wounded of the world. It was a gesture rooted in the Christian belief in reconciliation, and it caught the attention of many. Still, not everyone welcomed the news. Even as praise poured in from many parts of the world, there were those who looked at the Pope's past and saw something else. Survivors of clergy sexual abuse voiced concerns, raising issues about how Pope Leo handled cases during his time as a bishop and cardinal. They spoke clearly and without bitterness. They said they wanted answers. They wanted accountability. They pointed to specific cases where abusive priests were allowed to remain in ministry. In some situations, local law enforcement was never contacted. These survivors, along with organizations like SNAP, the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests, say that real healing cannot begin until there is complete transparency and justice. They are calling on Pope Leo XIV to take clear public action, to introduce zero-tolerance policies, to remove abusive clergy from all levels of ministry, and to create an independent truth commission. It is a painful part of the Church's history, and it's a challenge that Pope Leo XIV cannot ignore. While his message of unity and love is powerful, these calls for justice are a reminder that love must include truth, and unity must include accountability. There is also another layer of challenge, this one more political. In recent years, a divide has grown among Catholics, especially in the United States. On one side are those who support a more conservative vision of the Church, often tied to political movements. On the other side are those who support a more compassionate and inclusive approach, often aligned with Pope Francis's vision. Pope Leo XIV has been vocal in his support for immigrants. He has spoken out about gun violence. He has called for action on climate change. He has encouraged compassion for the poor and marginalized. But some far-right Catholic groups, especially those who support former US President Donald Trump, see these stances as political and threatening. They accuse the Pope of being anti-Trump, even of being Marxist, a claim many find both extreme and unfounded. These voices are loud, but they do not speak for the majority. Still, their influence has grown, and Pope Leo XIV now faces a challenge that is as much about faith as it is about public opinion. How he navigates this landscape will shape how the world, and the Church, sees his papacy in the years to come. Even with all of this swirling around him, The praise, the criticism, the expectations. Pope Leo XIV